Welcome to Jewish Life, a program presented in cooperation with the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York. I'm your host, Stewart Ain. Every week we present programs of particular interest to the Jewish community. Today my guest is Rabbi Marc Schneier. He's president of the Foundation for Ethical Understanding. It's a group he founded in 1989 to rebuild Jewish-Black relations. He's also the founding senior rabbi of the Hampton Synagogue on Long Island, previously served as vice president of the World Jewish Congress. And in March 2022, Rabbi Schneier played a central role in facilitating the historic meeting between Israeli President Isaac Herzog and President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. That took place in Ankara, and it ushered what they had thought was going to be a new era of Turkish-Israeli rapprochement and reconciliation that has since gone asunder since the Hamas attack in October of 2023. And hi, welcome, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing well. By the way, just to correct you, the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding, not ethical.
I'm sorry.
The ethical understanding I'll leave to some of my colleagues. I'll focus on the ethnic.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
So what happened with Turkey? I mean, Erdogan most recently he cut off all trade now, and Israel is reciprocating. What?
It's very, very unfortunate. You're right. I played a critical role in facilitating the historic rapprochement between President Erdogan and the State of Israel by bringing President Herzog to Ankara at the time. I have enjoyed, some very unique relations, with President Erdogan, as I do with many Arab and Muslim leaders throughout the world. And his conduct has been terribly disappointing, to President Herzog, to War Minister Gantz, and myself. And even after the war, I was ready to get on a plane. He wanted to see me in Ankara, and I was going to discuss with him Hamas's charter in terms of paragraph 7, not only calling for the destruction of the State of Israel, but for the elimination of the Jewish people. And when Erdogan was in New York back in September for the UN General Assembly,
2023.
Yeah, he met with several quote unquote American Jewish leaders, and the one message that he disseminated, that he said, "Look, I will be your great champion in combating anti-Semitism within the Muslim world." So I was prepared to say, "Look, let's put the whole Israeli, Arab or Palestinian conflict aside. How do you defend Hamas that is hell-bent not only on the destruction of Israel, but on the Jewish people? So that, either, your friend Marc Schneier is in danger, and so is the Jewish community of Turkey. There are more than 20,000 Jews, living, in Turkey. But again, the rhetoric, the diatribe only intensified. It's unfortunate. I do have an idea as to how both Israel and Turkey will repair this relationship. What will be the game-facing measures here in terms of what both sides are going to say, which I prefer not to discuss right now. But in terms of the current situation, it's very, very disappointing, very dangerous. And I also don't understand, the fact that President Erdogan is coming to Washington to meet with President Biden finally on May 9th. He'll be in D.C. And when we structured the reconciliation between Israel and Turkey, it was really more about the United States than it was about Israel. Israel was the conduit in terms of strengthening Turkey's relationship with the U.S. But he's changed, of course, and I can only tell you it's very, very disappointing. At the same time, why I am so optimistic and why I'm so helpful, even in these very difficult and challenging times, particularly today, when everyone's bracing for a possible attack by Iran on Israel. One of my reasons for great optimism that this is the first war that Israel has fought where the Arab Muslim world is no longer united in terms of its focus and its kind of myopism in terms of looking to destroy the Jewish state. I mean, you take the region itself, you still have the Saudis that are committed to normalizing relations with Israel. You look at Saudi Arabia, you look at UAE, you look at Bahrain, you look at Morocco, even look at Qatar. And again, remember, I, unlike some Stewart who fly at 30,000 feet, if they're fortunate enough in that part of the world in terms of their relationships, I fly at 70,000 feet. So I am advisor, at the highest level to many of these Gulf states, and to the kings and to the presidents and to the emirs. Or you look at countries like Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and other Muslim countries. For the first time, we do see that there are some very significant Arab and Muslim countries that are standing with Israel, whether publicly or quietly, but they are standing with Israel. And that is a first in the 76 years of Israel's establishment.
Which
what?
Which ones publicly?
Bahrain, UAE, at the when I mean publicly in terms of their outcry after Israel was attacked by Hamas. So you had UAE, you had Bahrain, you had Morocco, you had Azerbaijan, you had Kazakhstan, publicly, spoke out against Hamas and the massacre it had perpetrated. So again, I think that that to me is a tremendous, tremendous sea change here. And then, again, you're catching me on a very anxious day because of the whole Iranian situation. But had you posed, or we would have had this discussion yesterday, I would have told you that I don't understand why American Jews continue to wallow in self-pity. I think many American Jews need a good dose of Jewish history. You look at the last 2,500 years, all the persecution, all the oppression, from the exile to the Crusades, to the Inquisition, to the pogroms, to the Holocaust. I look at my own father, 80 years ago, what he must have gone through in the Holocaust. Who are we to complain? I see a BDS rally, and my response, my natural response is, thank God we have a Jewish state for them to protest. And the fateful mistake that Hamas made on October 7th, they thought they were targeting defenseless and helpless Jews. We're no longer defenseless. We're no longer helpless. If God forbid Iran attacks, we know what the response is going to be on the part of the Israelis. This is the first time in 2,500 years that we are in this position. There's never been a greater time in our history to be alive as a Jew. And perhaps American Jews need to learn something from our Israeli brothers and sisters when it comes to resiliency, when it comes to determination, when it comes to perseverance. Thank God for the state of Israel and for the IDF that are determined in eradicating this evil and appreciate and are grateful what it means to be the generation to have the Jewish state.
Yeah. Do you believe that American Jews are not as supportive, or what are they? Why?
No. I don't think it's not a question of being supportive, but look, I remember several weeks ago there was a rock that was thrown through a kosher pizza store on the Upper East Side.
Yes.
It's like all hell broke loose. I mean, do I need to remind Jews of November 9th and 10th, 1938? You want to talk about the shattering of glass? Again, we need some perspective here. I mean, what else do you expect in the midst of this war? I'm one of the few, together, with my colleague Imam Shamsi Ali, we're the rabbi and the imam team that went into the college campuses, that went into the CUNY campuses at Queens College, at Lehman College, at Brooklyn College, to meet with the Muslim Students Association, to meet with the Hillel. So, of course, the Hillel students are very passionate about Israel. The Muslim students are very passionate about, Palestine or Gaza. But our message was you can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. So I know it's uncomfortable for American Jews to see, these pro-Palestinian demonstrations, but we should also remember there are 800,000 Muslims now living in greater New York. So, what side do you expect them, to take, in this conflict? And why, I've never been more committed, to the important principles of coexistence. And why, as Muslims and Jews, there are no two other religions that have more in common. Not only do we share a common faith, we share a common fate. And it must be our single destiny to strengthen our bonds of concern, compassion, and caring for each other. How many people, I just wrote this op-ed that will be coming out next week. How many people have taken time to notice that this year's Ramadan observance in Jerusalem at the Al-Aqsa Mosque? I was there 4 weeks ago on the eve of Ramadan, when I was summoned by Israel's leadership, by the president, prime minister, and by War Minister Gantz, to discuss, certain things in terms of my activities in the Gulf region. But I was also there on the eve of Ramadan when the city of Jerusalem was bracing itself for violence, for all this unparalleled tension at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Not a single incident. 125,000 Muslim believers descending on the Temple Mount, and with in the spirit of brotherhood and tranquility and reverence and understanding. People need to take note of. That is a very significant development, particularly in light of the escalating violence that took place the last 3 years at the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
And Hamas calling for a third intifada. And the
Hamas, you're right.
Yes.
All right, you had Hamas and you had Ben Gvir, who looked to shut the mosque off
from
the Muslim community, and you had some very rational minds, both the Israelis and the Palestinians, who recognized that we need to find a way to coexist. Right. And what greater example in the midst of the most horrific conflict in Gaza? Not a single incident in Jerusalem at the Al-Aqsa Mosque during the Ramadan observance. We need to learn to magnify our blessings and stop exaggerating our troubles.
What you go back to the rock being thrown through the deli? What would you wanted to see? What happened? What can you fill me in a little bit about that?
No. Again, I'm not saying that we should not respond, we should not react, but we need to have some context. We need to have some context here. Look at Jewish history. And everyone that's forecasting the doom and gloom, and this is another Nazi Germany, and it's like the 1930s, and this is another Holocaust. Give me a break.
Put in perspective, absolutely. Now, But you've noted, and you're not the only one, a number of people have noted, the silence. Only the United States, of all the countries, has been with Israel. No other country has been with Israel. The world organizations, the UN, the Red Cross, the Human Rights Watch, Human Rights organizations have refused to acknowledge what's happening, and they're silent. What do you say to that?
Again, nothing new. It's been like that for thousands of years. It used to be a lot worse. It used to be a lot worse than the silence.
So what do you do
And
when you write a check?
look. It's a product of anti-Semitism. I'm going to say this. This is my core belief that the very root of anti-Semitism is jealousy. I believe that 16 million people whose success is so out of proportion, and that's not only true as a nation, that's true in everyone's profession. Listen, Stewart, you and I go back probably 40, 45 years. Now, I know your colleagues well. I know that you have colleagues, many of them are very, very jealous of you. Why? Because Stewart Ain is considered a great success, meaning that you can't have success without the other, unfortunate emotion of jealousy. That's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. So if the Jewish people are going to be successful, if we're going to matter, particularly out of our proportion, then let's be grown-ups about this and realize that not everyone's going to wait in line saying, hey, bravo, for your tremendous success. I mean, look at the state of Israel. The state of Israel is in the top 10, a very possible survey economically, militarily, scientifically. It was just named. Can you imagine in the midst of this war, Israel is now, according to the UN, the 5th happiest nation in the world. I mean, it's just remarkable. The United States is 21, England is 15. In the midst of this war, Israel is considered the 5th happiest nation. The whole thing doesn't make sense. There's all this chatter going on in the media right now about the possibility of normalizing relations between Indonesia and Israel.
Yes.
Now, I've been involved in that since 2014, when President Widodo invited me to Jakarta to celebrate the translation of my book, Sons of Abraham, that I co-authored with Imam Shamsi Ali. He translated at his directive into Indonesian. It was a whole big to-do, and needless to say, we touched upon the idea of establishing, relations with Israel. I'll never forget that the president said to me, Rabbi, would you mind doing me a favor? There's a city near Jakarta. It's about a 45-minute flight called Jakarta. It's like their Boston. It's like their college town. Would you mind going there and giving a lecture to a large group of university students? So, we went to a lecture, all the Imam and I, about 1,000 students. Think about never meeting a rabbi, Stewart. They never met a Jew before. And I'll never forget, after my presentation, the first question, Rabbi, tell us, so how many Jews are there? I said, I don't know, what, 16 million? The young man says, no, not in New York. That's the point I'm trying to make. No one understands the extraordinary success and influence of 16 million people. And that conjures up jealousy. And people are jealous. They're jealous of Israel. They're jealous of the Jewish people. And Marc Schneier's interpretation of anti-Semitism, my understanding, that jealousy is at the very core of anti-Semitism, as jealousy is at the very core of any individual who is successful in his or her profession.
So how do we get over that? How do we deal with it?
You know what? It's a trade-off for being successful. Guess what, Stewart? Let them be jealous. I'd rather be successful. I'd rather matter. It's human nature. I'm sorry. It's human nature. Okay? Listen, I'm not speaking out of turn. You know how Many of my colleagues in the rabbinate are incredibly jealous of Marc Schneier. Why? Because I'm quiet? Because I'm in some remote synagogue in Iowa? Give me a break, okay? I know I'm a great success, and I've been very, very blessed. People are jealous. You know what? I take it as a backhanded compliment. What can I tell you?
Let me ask you this: the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding,
Yes,
a group you founded in 1989,
yes, with the late Joseph Papp.
right, to develop and enhance Black-Jewish relations. Yet,
That was our first focus,
yes,
our inaugural initial focus.
and yet what we're seeing, and you've been critical of it as well, is that groups like Black Lives Matter have been, well, how would you describe their reaction to what's happened since Hamas attack?
Look, it's very unfortunate, but I do believe whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's young Latinos, young whites, even some young misguided Jews, I think that their lack of support for Israel is more of a generational issue. I'm hopeful because eventually they will grow up. And as they grow up, they will begin to understand. And, I would say that in war, the first casualty is the truth. In war, the first casualty is the truth. Young people, they're easily influenced. Look, it was funny. A few weeks ago, I spoke at the PAP at the Shakespeare Festival in New York City. And in the middle of my presentation, 3 times I was heckled by pro-Palestinian demonstrators. And, again, they have their um,
Stick.
no, exactly. I was going to say, they have their game plan, they have their scorecard.
Right.
And the audience looked to me for some comfort and consolation. My reaction was, eventually, these kids will grow up. I think it's more of a generational issue because among Black leaders, from Al Sharpton to Derek Johnson at the NAACP to Mark Morial to the Congressional Black Caucus and others, I think they've been very supportive of Israel. They have some issues in terms of how Israel is fighting the war in Gaza, and the number of children, that have Palestinian children that have been killed.
Right.
But I think if you look at Black leadership overall, they have been relatively supportive, as supportive people can be in this conflict.
Yeah. So how do you see the conflict going? Are you critical as well of the way
I'm
it's
not. Look. I'm. I have a very um, conservative view when it comes to this conflict. I think people forget that Hamas was voted into Gaza twice by the Palestinians. And, people speak of innocent civilians. How innocent are, should we have used that same logic, when it came to the Germans in Nazi Germany? Many Germans said, listen, what do you want from us? We were just a cog in Hitler's machine. Well, I don't think any of the allies from the UK, the France, to the Americans, ever bought that line. I think we need to really take a hard look at this term innocent civilian. I mean, Hamas was voted in twice
and still supported.
to be what?
And they're still supported. At the start of the war, 74% of the Palestinians in Gaza supported, and now 72%. Just recently said.
So for someone who is as progressive, as I am, and I'm all about, coexistence, but I also think that we have to carefully examine words and expressions we use here, and keep referring to Palestinians in Gaza as innocent civilians. Hey, they had options in terms of the Palestinian Authority and others to vote in to office and to be their leaders, and this is who they chose. And that's why the conflict is ongoing, and it will take a generation. It's funny, when I was in Israel 4 weeks ago, and I'm very, very, very close with War Minister General Benny Gantz, and I said to General Gantz, I said, "How long do you think it's going to take?" He said, "It'll take 25 years, 25 years, until we can really see a generational shift in terms of understanding and appreciation, for coexistence between Palestinians and Israelis."
We've got about 3 minutes left, and I wanted to see if you could just talk about what's happening at the Hampton Synagogue and the developments out there, and you're constantly building. What's in the plan now, and what have you done? If you got about 3 minutes.
All right. So in 3 minutes, I have to answer the question: what is not happening at the Hampton Synagogue? But look, it's a whole transformation. We built really a JCC for the children. The whole transformation in the congregation. It's an entire block, magnificent outdoor, indoor structures, from state-of-the-art facilities, swimming pool, sports courts. We're now completing the first mikveh of the Hamptons, which is a very, very big deal. I must tell you, my 34 years here, of all the projects I've been involved in, Stewart, this is transformative. To build a mikveh is a great, great, great privilege and honor. It will be completed, God willing. We're dedicating it on Sunday, July 7th. What else? The fact that Dale Chihuly, the master artist himself, this is the only synagogue in the world in his lifetime that he ever helped design. The magnificent Chihuly glass.
That Holocaust piece that he made.
Well, that will be dedicated, God willing, next summer. This will be the first Holocaust memorial of his career, and the first and the only Holocaust memorial in the Hamptons. So look, our tagline is making the ordinary extraordinary. What a blessing to have the world's premier cantor, the premier choir. Every member of our choir sings in New York Opera. In season, to paraphrase Dickens, we're a tale of two seasons. May 1st through the Jewish holidays, those 6 months are in season. The other 6 months are off season. In season, we have 800 people here on Saturday morning. And to all your listeners, join us. It's the most magnificent service. We'll feed you lunch afterwards, so you can't beat that. And it's something very, very, very special. And I'm very, very proud. This will be my 40th year. This is my 40th year in the rabbinate. And my rabbinic class, my ordination class at Yeshiva University with Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, 40 years ago, there were 43 of us, Stewart, who became rabbis, who got smicha. Today, I'm the only one left on the pulpit.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Marc Schneier. Appreciate it. And great talk to you again. This is Jewish Life. My name is Stewart Ain. Until next week, have a good one.